This is part 6 of my CAGED Triads tutorial. If you've not seen any of the others, I'll put a link in the description to a playlist showing the first 5 parts. So in this episode, I'm going to concentrate on the A, D and G strings. So we've covered the G, B and high E, we've covered the D, G and B, and now we're going to look at the A, D and G strings. So straight away out of this first position, again we can think of our full C chord. Always think of the full chord. Then we could just take this first finger off, and that's our A, D and G strings. So we've got root, 3rd, 5th. Then the next inversion, we come along and we grab this shape, which is ring finger on the 7th fret of the A, and then we've got the G note, which is our 5th. We've got our first finger barring. So how we can think of this is this triad we did with the first series, this second inversion barring the D, G and B strings. We can do this triad again, but we're going to reach over with our ring finger and just grab the 7th fret of the A string, and we just play the A, D and G strings. So that's 3rd, 5th, root. So this remains the same. So we've got this shape, root inversion, first inversion, then the next shape, you think of your E form C major bar chord, but just take the bar off and you're left with this back portion of it. You've got the A, D and G strings, you've got 5th, root, 3rd. So that's ring finger on the 10th fret of the A string, pinky has got the root on the 10th fret of the D, and our middle finger has got the major 3rd on the 9th fret of the G string. And then we can come up to the 12th fret and repeat exactly what we did here, but we're going to have to grab the nut as the G string, so we're going to have to fret that on the 12th fret. Root, 3rd, 5th, 3rd, 5th, root, 5th, root, 3rd, back to root, 3rd, 5th again. So you can start to see these patterns and shapes coming up this way. So if we take this first position, the C chord, so that's D, G and B, that's a G, B and E strings, the first one we did. And then we've got this, sorry, the first one we did was on the D, G and B. Then we did this string set. Now we're doing this one. So you can see it forms a full C chord. And then we can do the same covering this shape. And then this goes into this shape. So you can think of your C major chord, your A form C major chord. This part remains the same, our second inversion triad. But we just change this root to the 3rd. So this chord kind of opens like a door, like swings over like a door, and we just switch the root. Not the root, sorry, we switch the bass note. So the root becomes a 3rd. This comes from your E form bar chord. Just remove that finger and there you've got your triad shape. Again, through all the chord shapes. So we've got G, B, E strings. we've got D, G and B, we've got A, D and G, and then we've got G, B, E, we've got our D, G and B strings, and now A, D and G. And at this chord shape, G, B and high E string triad, D, G and B, and now we're A, D and G strings. And back up to the 12th fret, G, B and high E strings, our D shape, then first inversion triad, which is the D, G and B, and then the one we've just done is the A, D and G strings, our root inversion. That's good practice to come up all these string sets that we've learned from all the way from part 1. The reason in part 1, the reason why we start this exercise on the D, G and B and not the top 3 strings is purely because they're just the easiest ones. Remember, for the time being, just keep it shapes, just practice shapes coming up and down, up and down. This exercise, doing it in C, is purely to learn the shapes, learn the names of the inversions and the order of the notes. What we'll go into in the next series is on the E, A and D strings. I'll go through them quickly now. If you can pick them up, good work, but I'll go into them in more detail again next week. That's the E, A and D strings. So that's basically this shape, but here. Then we have this one, which is basically this, or this. And then we've got this inversion, which is this. And then back to this. So it gets, they pretty much just repeat themselves off the lower string sets. That's the way you want to be exercising it. You want to be coming this way, that way, then you want to be shouting out to yourself all the root inversions, playing them, all the first inversions, playing them. Then we want to be adding a 1, 4, 5 to all the different string sets. Then we're going to start changing keys, and what I think I'll do next week as well is start wrapping the major scale around some of these positions. So give me a shout if you get stuck, or if anything's not too clear. You can just pop it in the description and I'll answer all your questions. Cheers.